Hello, everyone. Hopefully you are enjoying your Friday. It is Friday afternoon. I don't know about you, but I am thrilled. I'm here with Alexis Quintal. How are you doing?
Good, good. Also
You're,
happy it's
you're
Friday.
closer to the end of Friday because you're on the East Coast.
I know. I'm always like in the future.
Shout out to Tampa folks because that's where you're from
Yeah.
because we have such a huge Tampa following. Where in Tampa are you? Which part of town?
So it's called Seminole Heights. So
Oh,
some
okay.
people may recognize that, some may not.
Yep, the Tampa locals probably will.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just explain to folks how we met since it's kind of quirky, and then we're gonna dive in. So in doing this summit, Alexis registered and reached out since throwing summits is one of the things that her business does. So if you didn't like ours, it's not her fault. Um, if we were to do it again, we would definitely pull in more smart people, but when you pull off a summit in 3.5 weeks, that's not what happens.
Oh, yeah, you killed it.
But yeah, it was such a fun way to meet, and just hearing what you did. We had a conversation, would this be helpful for our audience right now? And to be honest, I said, I don't know if people are ready to start moving everything virtual. I have no idea. It's not a question I've asked. However, when I saw that Microsoft, it was 2 weeks ago, canceled all of their live events until, I want to say it was July of 2021,
Yeah.
kind of the first indicator, okay, events are going to be virtual for a while. And so all the companies that took their spring events and just pushed them to fall, at some point, probably many or most are going to think, okay, I either have to go all in on virtual
Mm-hmm.
or I'm out of luck. And so I thought, who's to know if people need this today? But if it's not today, it'll be soon.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're having this conversation. This is one of your passions, something you talk about all the time and
Yeah.
present about. But I know it's not the only thing your business does. So just tell us a little bit about your business, the types of things you do, and then we're going to delve in and pick your brain.
Yeah, sure. So I launched Alexis Rose Co. earlier this year, and really what I was focusing on is just overall marketing strategies and supporting local businesses in Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg and the area, really just help grow their business. So it could be like social marketing, could be Google marketing, could be email, there's a kind of a variety that was included in that. But a big piece of what I focused on was community marketing. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm going to make it a thing. I really think that people care enough to connect with the businesses that really where the brands are actually connecting with them back. So what I call community marketing is almost like relationship building, where you recognize who your audience is, you are often giving back and supporting the community in unique ways, and that in turn is going to help you improve your content. It's going to help you grow your following. People will feel good about your business, so they're more likely to shop there or use your services. So big piece of that was events, and it was in-person events. It was throwing, maybe like a launch event where you're inviting everyone in to experience your new shop or, a new service, and connecting with them on that one-on-one level. And of course that kind of just got, completely changed with where we're at now today. So what I kind of decided to do was pivot the best that I could, but still be able to support these businesses to keep them relevant and engaged with their customers, versus completely just going dark. That's the last thing you want to do, is go dark. So even if you can do a very low cost virtual event, whether it's really big with hundreds of people, or even just small with 25 of your returning customers, your most loyal people, then they're going to at least keep you top of mind. It could also help you gain referrals, return customers. I've kind of seen that this is already helping brands and businesses just keep themselves afloat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really interesting time. So I'm going to be fascinated to see the different approaches that companies take, because you're right. Some are just going to kind of stop interacting with customers, and some are going to go all in. And then what are those flavors? So a summit is definitely one of them, or webinars, or all sorts of ways to engage.
This is great. It gives people a reason to get up and get dressed and have something to look forward to on a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
and also be able to connect with each other and give each other resources and build partnerships, almost like, what we've done. So I
Yeah.
think it's going to be important over the
I,
next few months.
I love what you said about the sharing resources and the community marketing, because I really do feel like with more people working from home, more people are kind of moving into the space that many of us have been in for a long time, but not everyone, where the virtual communities that you build, and I don't necessarily mean a membership community, so informal,
Yeah.
and the resources that you share, the brainstorming, the ideas, is going to become even more powerful than it always has been.
Exactly. And I think even when things go back to normal in July 2021, when we start having in-person conferences again, I still think virtual is going to be a big piece of it. We're going to get kind of used to it and realize that it almost opens up your event to more people, it helps with travel expenses and hotel expenses. And, it's just, I think that it's going to become almost like a half and half now, where in the future people will attend events, but then the other half of the time they may just want to tune in virtually from home. So it's going to be really important to know how to put on a good virtual event. So that's really what I'm hopefully, going to be educating people on, is let's make sure we don't burn each other out with, like poorly planned and, just poorly executed events. I've been going to them every week now and just kind of like taking notes on what to do, what not to do. So kind of using that plus my, in-person event expertise to try to just come up with like a strategy for everyone that can easily just make sure they're thinking, pre-planning the right things, using it as a lead generation tactic, and provide value so that their brand doesn't like diminish their brand or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's super important. One of the questions we'll come back to is how can you make them engaging, which is not something that we did on this summit. And it was intentional given the constraints of time. However, virtual doesn't have to mean that it is always one-way information sharing. So we'll come back to that. One of the first questions that I want to ask you is, what are you seeing as being the most difficult parts of a business in terms of staying relevant and, in the forefront during this, period where there is so much stay away, stay inside?
I know. It's definitely been, I think it's been difficult for businesses. And I think a lot of it is for them kind of deciding where to best spend their budget. They're almost having to make these decisions of, do we keep our employees or do we keep our marketing budget? And for a lot of them, they can't necessarily do both. So where they've kind of had to cut out is that marketing budget, which completely fair. I mean, keep people's jobs as much as you possibly can, but at the same time, you still need your business to be marketing itself in order for all of you to keep your jobs. So kind of what I have been doing to support those businesses with their like budgeting and kind of just, figuring out where to split that. And that's why I think virtual events is just such a great way to almost for free offer up some, free education to your clients or, to your consumers, and still keep that relationship growing. And in the same time, it also increases your content, because now you can start posting like, oh, we're having an event, some follow-up photos of the event, people having a good time. So in the end, it's very low cost, but still allows you to stay relevant.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The relevant is ever changing. So the nice thing about a summit is you can change focus and hone the purpose and the message, up until, I don't want to say the moment you go live, but it's easier to adjust it.
It kind of is, yeah.
So with our summit, I would say that one of the hardest parts for me, and mind you, it was a time crunch, was figuring out what platforms to use when you have gigs and gigs of content that you are pulling together, and then registration, and then the email follow-ups, and just all of that stuff. Where were you when I needed you? So what kind of recommendations do you have on that front, that it's not going to break people's budgets to,
There's a lot of free, there's a lot of free platforms, and you kind of have to, this is where I think like the strategy and the pre-planning comes in, because you do need to obviously look at all your options, kind of decide what makes the most sense for you. You'll have to select a registration software A lot of which you can just embed into your website, or you can build, like I love Splash that. You can actually build a registration page. It's almost like a WordPress where you can add in your speakers and your schedule, but then it also will intake the people's information as they're registering and also spit out, that follow-up email. So that's a recommendation, definitely. But then you also have to make sure you're selecting the right platform for your event. So where there is Zoom, which I think is everyone's go-to, there are other options. Google Hangouts came up with their kind of like Zoom competition, where if you have G Suite in your, in one of those business user profiles already, I think you have free access right now. And it's got, their opportunity. So that might be worth testing out. There's Microsoft Teams. There's even some really creative new platforms, like one's called Lunch Pool. And it actually is set up as like a table. So you're almost, when you join the event, you're walking into a room and you pick a table, and the table has 8 people max. So you're actually, then all 8 videos will be on your screen at once, and you're kind of having like a smaller breakout where there could be up to 400 people at the event, but you're not trying to, connect with 400 other people. You're having the opportunity to break it down to be a little bit smaller and have that interaction that I think people are missing. So, a lot of my, like, if you visit my website, I've been kind of writing up, based off of what type of event you're having, what platforms I would recommend that you choose from.
I'm glad you brought up Lunch Pool. I'd never heard of that. I know you could do breakout rooms in Zoom, but
yeah,
that's still not quite the same as Lunch Pool. So that's a great one.
It's different. It's fun. I've been to a couple events for it.
That's cool. And I know you have a couple slides, so feel free to pop them up as I'm asking you questions, since you talk about this all the time, and for our more visually inclined people. This next question kind of pains me to ask, because we probably didn't do it following leading practices for this event, but when would you suggest sending out an agenda, the more detailed agenda to guests?
Yeah. I think that is really important, and it's, it's never too late. But I think that what was really best practice is either the day before or the day of the event, depending on when it starts. If it's a 9 a.m. start, then the day before. If it's like a 6 p.m. start, then maybe that day at like noon, when they're checking their email at lunch, they can at least, I just think people, even though they're still virtual and they're still working from home, they still want to be able to like map out their time and have an idea of, okay, the event starts at 6, but the panel starts at 6:30. So, I've got a little bit of leeway to jump in and not miss what I'm actually there for.
Yeah.
And then have an idea as well of when it ends exactly, so they can kind of revolve their day, maybe their dinner plans around that. So, I think, one of my big things too is, as much communication and information as possible that you can provide about who's speaking and when and where and why. Don't forget that why of what is the value, and, what's the why message behind why people should attend the event. What are they going to get out of it? So that's why there's so many different moving pieces in this whole process.
Yeah, no, that's important. And actually, one of the things that for our summit that we changed on the fly is, initially, the sessions were going to begin at 9 a.m. Eastern and be live on Fridays following a certain time frame. And because we ended up getting so many international speakers, and they then invited so many international people, what we ended up doing, and it seems to be working fairly well, is we do begin airing the live at 9 a.m. But once something has aired, it automatically stays live or on. It stays on demand. So if somebody starts watching at 9 Pacific time, they can actually start at the beginning. They don't have to hop in with. They can jump forward to whatever's current, but they can also start where they are, which is nice, because otherwise, you have people in Asia and Africa who are, bending over backwards.
I think that's really smart, because that's really hard to try to line up everyone's schedules when they're all over the world. But you still want to be able to offer it to everyone, all over the world. That's amazing to have that kind of people together.
Yes. Yes.
So I think, there would definitely be, I think there could be some fun aspects of adding in like a Slack chat or, some sort of group where everyone can still connect with each other and, on their own time when they're able to. But having that like 60 hours to watch, so you're not like, you don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. in order to catch the introduction or anything like that. I think that's
so you touched you mentioned briefly Slack, and we did a little pilot with it. Since we didn't market having those channels, we didn't get a lot of activity. But what are some of the ideas in terms of making them interactive so it isn't just one-way training or educating?
Yeah, well, I can kind of just speak to one experience I attended. It was actually an engineering summit, it's called Lead Dev Live, which I kind of realized isn't my usual audience, but I was like, hey, you know what?
Mine either.
I'll learn from some engineers today. I don't have anything else to do. So they had a really cool Slack channel where they had multiple different channels. So there was one that was like networking. There's one that was just about, just chat about, it actually was live. So you could chat about who was speaking at the time and what the topic was. And then there was one that was called Lunch Break. And what I thought was really cool is that Slack has all these different bots that you can kind of input in, and they take over and help you with some of the organization. So what this bot did is it took everyone that had joined the Lunch Break channel, because that basically meant they were signing up to maybe network and meet people on their lunch break. And it broke everyone up into groups of 8 and then made a new channel where now you were in that private channel with just the 8 other people that were also attending the conference. And it gave you an introduction and say, hey, everyone, you're now in this lunch group together, introduce yourself, share where you're from. I met people from like Germany and all over the world. It was so cool. And we just had our own little like private discussion. And I felt like I had attended the conference and like met someone in the hallway on the way out of the event. So it was really cool.
I love that. I mean, partly because the overhead is you don't have to have people in each of the rooms.
Right.
Kicking up the conversation.
Yeah, I know that can be a lot to handle.
A logistical nightmare.
Right.
And I'm a huge Slack fan. And those little bot dudes are so helpful. I can remind me to follow up with this person whenever. So that is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely a good tip for the future.
I wrote it down. That's a good one. Any other ideas that you've seen that kind of amp up the interaction?
I've seen people try like Facebook events or almost like putting it like on Instagram Live, so then people can interact a little bit more. But sometimes that can be hard. I think people are already kind of bombarded on Facebook and Instagram, so it wasn't as successful as what I saw on Slack. But at least, they still added in that interaction. So if someone really was like craving it, they had the opportunity to connect with other people that were in attendance at the event. And I'm sure there was a few people that did have a good experience out of it, but it's more of trying to think, how do we get the most people, involved and connected as possible?
Yeah. I know one of the ideas that I'd heard was that you're collecting questions throughout the event, and then you have a live Q&A session where you're fielding the questions that you've just kind of been collecting.
Yeah, I love that.
And then
it's like that panel setting.
Right. Yeah. And then one of the things that I'm going to be doing, one of our speakers from last week, Annette Franz, who wrote the book Customer Understanding, we're going to do a 5-session webinar. But we're going to, at the end of the webinar, there'll be an optional 20-30 minutes that's open Q&A, so we'll take people off of mute.
Yeah.
We're aiming for smaller groups for these sessions, but just to have a little bit of live human being as opposed to type your question in the chat, which there's a place for that too, but we're going to experiment.
Yeah, no, that sounds really fun. I'll have to try to sign up for that.
Yeah, it's just, experimenting with what works. And
I mean, no one really knows. We're all still learning as we go.
Well, and I love the creativity, because even if we knew something worked, who's to say there aren't 20 more even better ideas? So I love all of the people experimenting with, the breakout rooms in Zoom and everything. So another question for you: how can a business follow up on whatever event they're doing to, whether it's increase sales or whatnot, without being the obnoxious company? Not that I've ever thought companies were obnoxious and unsubscribed, but how can you follow up without bombarding people obnoxiously?
Yeah, well, I think that people are most going to be expecting a follow-up after an event. It also would be amazing if your speakers could be either involved in the follow-up or do their own, if there's a way to tell like who was in the room for their for their session.
Mm.
Because again, all this is about connecting each other. So when I host events, I'm really big on, when I reply to everyone on the follow-up, actually including everyone's emails in CC rather than hiding them, because they may have made some connections in that meeting that I didn't know about because I'm busy running it. And they may be able, want to be able to just reach that contact email and reach out and see if maybe there's partnership opportunities. So I think that at least doing one follow-up is like mandatory.
Okay. Yeah.
And then after that is where you're hitting like, okay, maybe you're getting too salesy. So what you'll really want to make sure is that there's a why behind why you followed up, maybe a week later. And it could even be like a survey, or maybe you had a call to action or a giveaway that you're just following up. Hey, we told you we were going to have this giveaway. So you're kind of expecting it. So it's a little bit like they don't realize that you are trying to build the relationship and maybe possibly bring them in as a new customer, without just responding to everyone being like, okay, thanks for joining. Now here's how you purchase. And, just getting right to the point. You want to try to, build that value before you jump there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say that, because even on LinkedIn, I've been going crazy with the people, they want to connect with you, and then 5 seconds later, and I think I've told this story before, but I had one person who said, let me help you build up your side hustle so you can quit your day job. I'm like, well, that's going to be awkward. For my team, when I quit my company,
right?
But so many of these like blind reach outs.
Whereas
I've had other people who I actually had someone, it was just last week, who we've gone back and forth on LinkedIn for a long time, and he's like, hey, let's do a video chat. He's in Germany, and just kind of get to know each other a little bit more, and are there ways we can partner or serve each other? And it was very natural, and I appreciate it, because now I know him a little bit better. But I've had that with several people, and some of them I get to the point where I'm like, how do I do business with you? Because
you want
they
that
are
natural,
they're never pushing it, but I know so clearly what they do, and I now need it. And so they've given me the space and the freedom to ask for it at the right time for me.
Yeah. And if it makes sense for you, and how I think this is a really great way to just generate more leads, because you have all these people's contact information. They attended your event, they kind of learned a little bit more about what you do or what you offer. And, if you are doing a monthly or weekly newsletter, I also don't think that's bad to just add them to your newsletter list, so then they can kind of just be up to date of what's going on. I mean, don't do it every day. But if you're doing like a weekly, bi-weekly newsletter, if they don't like it, they'll unsubscribe. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. But if they like something that you've included, or they want to partner with you, or, you never really know. So I think that just almost like utilizing that information that you've now obtained, like your best ability, I think can be a win-win.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I love what you said about the why. Why am I sending this? And it's something I'm probably hyper paranoid about, making sure that if I send out content, it's valuable. Because I don't know if there's a person, I'd probably win Guinness Book of World Records for unsubscribing. I unsubscribe from everything.
Really?
I mean, if my mom sent out a newsletter, I would unsubscribe. Oh. Sorry, Mom. I wouldn't. I mean, I might. But I will go, because when I want to read it and when I have the time, I will go find it. But my inbox is also, it's either like, it's less than a dozen emails, and by the end of the day, it's empty. That's just, a compulsion. And so
so maybe you're just a very organized person.
I think it's so that I'm not. That's why I'm like, get it out of there. And so I don't want to be the person who's spamming people, but I send out a monthly newsletter. I believe it's valuable for people. But I ask myself that question: is this valuable, and would I open it?
Yeah. And there probably is a reason why people would find it valuable. I'm trying to think of the newsletters I actually enjoy. Most of them I enjoy because of the business news and the events that they include in their newsletter, like upfront, like here's what's going on this week, virtually right now, obviously. But that's just my thing. So as long as you're kind of finding out like what is your audience's thing that they're going to be interested in and actually want to read, and then keep growing that every time you send out your newsletter.
So based on the events you've attended lately, is there anything you'd say if anybody's like you, they probably should not do something super clearly. And if it's about me, please just don't use my name.
No, no, no. The first one I thought of, actually, I won't use any names, but it was a virtual networking weekly event. And it was so on. The first thing they had us do was change our Zoom name to just our phone number. And I don't know if that was just me, but I actually left the event. I would never do that, but I was like, I'm just uncomfortable. Everyone else was doing it. And I was like, I don't want to put my phone number. I don't know any of these people.
Odd.
Why am I changing my name to my phone number? So that was one thing that I'm like, maybe don't push, like, if anything, that should be included in the follow-up. If you want, I see you're trying to connect everyone, and that's great, but don't push it on them, allow them to kind of still make that decision themselves through your follow-up and, how you continue connecting with them.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Anything else you've seen that's hopefully?
No, I mean, I think for the most part, I've kind of like found the positive. Like sometimes it maybe isn't the entire event, which is normal if you think about even going to an in-person event. Like there's pieces that you're like, I could skip that next time, and then there's pieces that you walk away and you're like, you know what, this whole day was worth it. So as long as there's been valuable speakers and maybe some fun giveaways, and I always love a good like brand story. I think when having businesses be able to almost like take this opportunity to tell their story, which maybe they wouldn't have normally done if they're just focused on their day-to-day jobs, like that type of stuff is really great to experience.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I would love to have done, and initially I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, let's get back to reality, is if for the sessions, and over time we'll add this to our content library, but who is the best audience? So we know for our summit, it was SMB leaders, but some of them are, folks who are really interested in X, Y, Z. And a lot of that you can infer from the title, but making it even more specific and clear. And so that you could actually even sort to say, okay, this is, the avatar or whatnot that I relate with, show me the, top 10 sessions or 5 sessions.
That's a great
like
point.
that.
Yeah, that is a good point, because people do have very different interests and won't necessarily want to hear from everyone. So the more opportunity you can give them to like control their own schedule and have the ability to see what's coming, they're gonna just have a better experience overall.
So any slides that you haven't shown that kind of reinforce anything that you've talked about that we want to pop up?
We might as well. So what I had really put together was just some examples, because I figured for some people maybe having that visual of how do I market my event, how do I make sure I'm telling the story correctly. And I hosted it was like a casual happy hour virtual networking event, but it did have a why behind it. It did have 3 panelists that came on and spoke about what they're doing in Tampa Bay to give back to the community. And they were specifically in the advertising industry, because obviously I'm big in advertising and marketing. So I'm part of the AAF Tampa Bay, which is American Advertising Federation Tampa Bay. So I thought, it was when I was playing the event, I was like, okay, this is very timely. It's also relevant. And then we came up with this cool like hashtag TB on tap, meaning like we're bringing you the best of the Bay news on tap in Tampa Bay. We picked like this font that was very consistent, the white on white that was on all of our event promotions. You kind of knew when, as soon as it was up, oh, this is another, just update on what's to come. And then we used images that were actually of our board members enjoying a drink, whether it was a coffee or, a cocktail, because that was a piece of it too, was bring a drink. It was like a 6 p.m. event. So I just thought maybe giving an example. And then also what's cool here is, you see, I posted this on the same day, but they're very different. One's tailored to Facebook, one is tailored to Instagram. So that's if you really want to get into like the nitty gritty of marketing and branding. You do have very different audiences in both of these platforms. So you'll want to make sure you're tailoring your messaging to your audience.
Yeah, that's huge. A beautiful color palette.
Yeah. And then here's the example of the event agenda in the timeline. So this is what was emailed out I believe I did the day of about noon. It was a 6 p.m. event, and it gave them the idea of when the event starts, when the panel starts, when we're doing our gift card giveaway, which we waited until towards the end so they couldn't just try to jump in for the gift card giveaway.
Yeah.
And then allowing time for open discussion. I thought people might like to see that, like, oh, I can actually share what I'm doing personally, jump on the video chat and share with the group, you know, what else is going on in Tampa that maybe we'd want to highlight to support local.
I think the thing to call out here, which I am loving, is that this really is an agenda that's breaking it down into slices of time. So not just slices of a day and a summit, but, you know, 6, 10,
Yeah.
20, 30. And so you're right. People can say, oh, I don't want to miss Adriana. And hop in there. And just even if you join at the beginning, I have a high need to know like what is coming.
Yeah, I know. People
and
really do.
it's not fancy.
No, it really didn't take that long.
So yeah, no, I love that. That's a great example.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just moving our faces so that people could see the screen.
Oh, okay. So then I also want to show examples of social event sharing. Actually, I don't think we talked about this, but if you think about when you're back in the day when we were attending events, a big thing that people liked about actually going to the events was being able to like take photos and share on social media, tagging themselves at that conference and who they got to meet, who they got to hear from. You know, half the experience these days is showing it off. And I think that's something you can also bring to virtual. So I just shared some examples of how we, you know, took pictures and videos and boomerangs of our guests while they were enjoying themselves. And they also, some of these were actually their photos that they posted and then we reshared. So it's another great way too to grow your following if you're looking to grow like your social media following. Now all of these people that were tagged and reshared, you know, we got a lot of their followers to kind of, you know, follow us and say, oh, what is this event that's going on? You know, this looks really fun. You know, I want to make sure I don't miss the next one. That's a great way to let your guests like kind of show off.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been in a couple of Zoom calls where they've done the, you know, screenshot of us all on there and they are fairly, no, they're very entertaining, very entertaining.
We tried to purposely do it when everyone was cheersing, but I don't know if people had empty cups or what, but only half the people actually like put up a cup. So it was an attempt.
Yep.
And then lastly, the follow-up email is a big thing. And there's multiple things happening here where we have the links to the 3 initiatives that were discussed by the panelists. So now everyone that had this follow-up email can just click it, go directly there if they want to help support. I also congratulated the gift card winners and then mentioned that we were still raffling off a 3rd gift card that was going to be like a social media raffle. So if you tagged us, then you'd be entered to win. So it's another way for us to get more following, you know, get more just social media impact there, and had a call to action. So we could, again, follow up again if we wanted to, and it wouldn't have been like out of the blue. It would have been, oh, they're announcing their next gift card winner. And then you can kind of slide in some other information there if you'd like to as well.
Yeah, I even think that the graphic, I mean, we've all seen that graphics like that, and I actually really like it. It does definitely make it more personable, and the links are huge. Like, make it easy for me to find the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah. Ooh. So I don't know if you had any other questions, but I thought I would just kind of also.
Yeah, no, this would have been the question is, you know, if people, if they want to know more, either about throwing a virtual event or other things that you do, and shout out, you don't have to be in Tampa or in Florida. As you can see, she can work with anyone, and we're in San Diego. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about how folks can follow up with you, get more connected.
Yeah, so I have my website, alexisrose.co, and then email connect@alexisrose.co. I'm offering free 30-minute consultations to the SMB guests. So if they even just want to chat, you know, it's not going to cost them anything to get an idea of, you know, what exactly would this look like? Do I even have the right why message or reasoning behind what, you know, why I want to have this virtual event? And then what services, you know, we can help with if you'd like to, you know, split it up. Because one thing I recommend too is having a team, because there is a lot that goes into this. So you're going to need someone really helping with like your social content. You're going to need to make sure you have a traffic driving strategy to drive to your registration page. You've got the agenda set up. If you're going to do a presentation, like this, you know, you need to have that already set up and branded.
Yeah.
A follow-up survey, call to action. If you're going to go live during the event, usually the host can't, you know, do everything at once. So you do really need support. So that's something that, you know, I'd love to help with, and, you know, just provide as many resources as possible.
Yeah, so especially for folks who, if you're not necessarily sold on doing a virtual event and you just want to brainstorm whatever you may have planned in person and what that could look like. Most of my best ideas, a lot of them come when I'm just bouncing ideas off of someone, especially when they do more of it than I do. So definitely reach out to Alexis for whether it's anything on the screen or whatnot. I know if we do another event like this, we will be engaging her. And I don't know if we're going to do another summit. We definitely have a 5-series webinar coming out middle of May for my booklet. I don't want anybody to think I'm writing a book, but my booklet.
Cool, that's exciting.
So it's going to be
book launch.
It's super relevant. It's the things companies do that they don't know they're doing that erode profit margin and customer experience. So same mistakes simultaneously eroding both. And so, excited about that. But so kind of a different virtual event. We're going to play with different things based on what we've learned here. And it'll be exciting. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for reaching out.
Thanks for connecting.
No, it's crazy because I wish I could pull up like all the emails we traded, because I am usually fairly wary of reach outs, but yours wasn't a salesy reach out. It was more, it
wasn't meant to be. I was just like, hey, do you need any help? Like
and I guess it was totally the sense I got. And so reaching out, and already, I mean, that's why, I mean, I'm sure we'll work together. And so I appreciate you just kind of on the fly, letting us pick your brain. And I know I'm looking forward to kind of developing our relationship further. And so thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. We will see you at the next.
All right, bye-bye.